Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Pac-Man here, and I am from the likes of the Mexi Toys videos here. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll present you another new Let's Play we are doing for the channel, and this pretty much leads us to the conclusion of the Donkey Kong Land trilogy of games for the Game Boy. Yes, we are about to be able to be playing through Donkey Kong Land 3 for the Game Boy. Or technically, both Game Boy and Game Boy Color, because if you do not know already, that this game first came out in 1997 for both America and in Europe. And relatively speaking, I can't even believe that this game is going to be turning into 25 years old until when it gets to the point during that month, during the course of October, and stuff like that. However though, in Japan though, this game never gets its Game Boy release, so instead, that the Japanese version does manage to retain the Game Boy Color version. So because of this though, it wasn't until when it comes out until 2000. So yeah, it's pretty weird, kind of think about it though. I think the only differences between the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color versions, I'm pretty sure, is that obviously the Game Boy Color version does manage to contain full color. Whilst, as you can see on screen, I'm going to be playing this once again on the Game Boy emulator, so I just want to let you guys know about this ever since in Donkey Kong Land 1, Donkey Kong Land 2, and all kinds of Game Boy Advance games during that time. So as a result, yeah, this is the only recording method I'm going to be doing for you guys. So anyway, so from the get-go, much like the forms of how it does it on Donkey Kong Land 1 and 2, you're able to actually access the file selection screen. However though, I'm going to be going for file 3 this time, because obviously with Donkey Kong Land 1, we've selected file 1, and in Donkey Kong Land 2, we've selected file number 2, and then now in Donkey Kong Land 3, I'm going to be going for file 3, because it seems pretty obvious, right? So anyways though, whoa, this world looks a lot more different from what I've noticed. Although mind you, the entire theming looks exactly the same as in the forms within Donkey Kong Country 3, because obviously this game is actually based off from Donkey Kong Country 3, because obviously if you couldn't tell from the title screen, you're able to actually take control of not only Dixie Kong, but also Kiddy Kong as well. So because of that though, this is basically, it's like the portable version of, you know, Donkey Kong Country 3, basically. So, anyways, let's get to it with the first world in this game, which appears to be Cape Codswallop, and the first level we have in the game, which appears to be Red Raft. So, basically, it's like the forms of taking place in the docks or something like that. So, yeah, let's get to it with the forms of Donkey Kong Land 3 for the Game Boy / Game Boy Color for those of you who lived in Japan. So, and obviously also this game also came out on the 3DS eShop Virtual Console re-release as well. However though, unfortunately you can't get those versions now just because obviously that the eShop application is about to be dead soon, to be more specifically until next year in March, like we already said this before ever since about almost a month ago. So as a result though, you can no longer get these games on the 3DS, sadly. But, regardless of such though, there are still some possibilities you can able to play this game every now and then. It's either on the emulator, or the Game Boy cartridge version, which good luck for trying to getting it, because obviously you really don't want to come across into a dead safe battery, so anyways though, so yeah, this is Donkey Kong Land 3, as I said before. This game plays out exactly the same as the forms of how it does it on Donkey Kong Land 1 and Donkey Kong Land 2. Well, the only obvious difference is this time, like I said before, we're not only going to be playing as Dixie Kong, but also we're going to be playing as Kiddy Kong as well, because obviously, like I said before, this is based off from Donkey Kong Country 3 for the Super Nintendo. So as a result though, there are some of these some similarities as the forms of how it does it on Donkey Kong Country 3. Such as, for instance, we actually stumbled across that familiar coin enemy, which I'll explain more about in a second, because we've completed the first level in the game already. So anyways though, so let's move on to the next level we have is Bed Shantae. So, and I think this takes place in a coral reef environment. So, a bit early to able to actually have a water level regardless. So, yeah, as to be expected though is the fact that, as you can tell from the actual hearts counter, this actually represents how much lives you got. However though, this game is actually very generous when it comes to giving you some extra lives, much like the forms of how it does it on the previous two games for sure. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, well, the entire gameplay mechanics plays out kind of similar to the forms of how it does it on Donkey Kong Land 2, because with all these Kong letters you're going to be collecting, that if you collect all of the Kong letters, basically once again you're able to get an extra life. Unlike in the forms of in Donkey Kong Land 1, that if you get the Kong letters, then basically it allows you to have the ability to save the game. And also on top of all that stuff, though, is the fact that every now and then, much like the forms of how it does it on Donkey Kong Land 2, that obviously if you couldn't tell with that particular icon, despite the fact that I just got hit, because as you can see, we once again managed to take control of one of those animal buddies, such as for instance, we actually take control of Ungard the Swordfish, which basically he plays out exactly like the forms of how it does it on the previous games, and unfortunately I got my first death, so to be expected for the most part, especially noticeable because you need to deal with the screen crunch every now and then. And on top of all that stuff though, there's going to be a lot of trial and error situations every once in a while. But I will say this right about now, that out of all the actual Donkey Kong Land games I actually did manage to play so far, some people seem to say that Donkey Kong Land 3 might actually be one of the best games in the entire Donkey Kong Land trilogy. Although some people seem to say that the first game is by far the worst of the three, just because of all that punishing difficulty, alongside with the forms of some very finicky controls, and on top of all that stuff though, there's not much else I can usually describe about it, because it's been about, I would classify for saying almost like 9 months ago, since we actually last played Donkey Kong Land 1, ever since by the very end of 2021, since that Mighty the Armadillo has already finished that game off, despite with the fault of that confusing uploading schedules timing as far as this is concerned. So anyway, so as you can see that we actually stumbled across that particular blue icon on the bottom right corner. This means that you're once again able to retain, like, well, I don't know about you, because it has been about quite a few days since we actually used the Game Boy emulator, because the last time we actually used the Game Boy emulator was actually by the forms of the actual, well, the Mega Man Marathon of Let's Plays, pretty much. Although, mind you, about the fact that recently, that Maxi, he's now finally back onto Super Mario 3D All-Stars recently, and he's now finally playing Super Mario Galaxy regardless. And on top of all that stuff though, we actually going to be recently tackling through, well, the next Zelda game basically, which is The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX for the Game Boy Color specifically, because, well, I'm sure that she'll explain more details about the game, and during at some point for the majority of the month, or something like that. So, anyways though, so let's go ahead and keep on swimming around a little bit. Sometimes this level can be a little bit of a maze-like, basically. So as a result though, there were a few times that you might able to actually swim and just see like nothing else or something like that. But at the very least, I did somehow manage to found that particular bonus area just right here. So that's sure it's something, alright. Oh, and also, I really do apologize with the forms of how the fact that with all this method, for all that recording sessions, as well as the forms of the actual time schedule at this point, this is mainly because, once again, my laptop just keeps lagging, and because of that though, that just feels very, very annoying and inconsistent sometimes. Especially noticeable, it doesn't help about the fact that I worked so hard to be able to actually get this entire editing stuff to deal with throughout the majority of the game, as far as this is concerned. So, yeah, how's anyone doing? Today's day is, of course, I would say that today it's the 3rd of September today, in this case in 2022 today. Still in the beginning of September, as to be expected, and, hopefully we might as well get the chance that maybe potentially we might as well get ourselves the actual General Direct. Well, it's kind of hard to tell, because obviously once again leaks and rumors are about to be able to go on rampage again. So because of this though, that's the reason why I'm pretty much going to be giving up look up on leaks and rumors, because this is getting ridiculous. So, but at least on the upside is though, is the fact that obviously we're going to be playing through not 1 but 3 Nintendo themed games. One of them is Mario, and the other one is The Legend of Zelda, and another one which is Donkey Kong. I was expecting to also include Kirby as well, but that can wait for a long while. Especially noticeable if we get around onto certain spin-off series, then we could probably give it a chance. Especially noticeable because I don't usually think that I've seen a lot of playthroughs on certain spin-off Kirby games in the past, but either way, I might as well give that a shot. So, especially, I was able to actually just to try to fiddle around with, able to actually access to the playable decision for the sake of the forms of Kirby Tilt and Tumble on the emulator, but it might be pretty hard to do, especially noticeable because it actually requires you to be able to put up with the special programming and stuff, but I will get around to it, so don't worry. So, and there's the second and the final bonus area, so oh yeah, something's worth mentioning in regards to the forms of those water levels. Unlike any forms of how it does it in Donkey Kong Country 3, that basically does the fact that you will come across into a DK Hero Coin if you somehow manage to able to stumble across a coin enemy. You know, much like any forms of the Super Nintendo counterpart of that coin enemy, although you still need to utilize the actual steel barrels in order to able to get rid of one of them throughout in each level throughout the whole game. However though, in certain water levels, that's basically that you get DK Hero Coin from the get-go, which is kind of interesting, honestly. So because of this, though, yeah, there's not much right to home about for the sake of the forms of how, you know, how different this thing can be sometimes, though. But anyway, so we've meet up with Winkly Kong, much like the forms of how it does it on Donkey Kong Land 2, along with Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3. So once again, it allows you to be able to save the game, and this time around, though, you don't need to require you to be able to pay something in order to be able to save your game. So yeah, that might be something worth noting for the sake of convenience, that is. So anyways, the next level we have is Fort Knox, and this once again takes place in the forms of being exactly the same level theme as the forms of how it does in the beginning of the game. So except the fact that with all these different bonus locations we need to look after for, and on top of all that stuff though, different enemy encounters on top of that. So relatively speaking though, there's not much else I can honestly try to explain about Donkey Kong Land 3 as far as the actual things itself goes. So, yeah, what's the entire story that is actually based off from? Well, like I said before, it's the fact that this game is obviously based off from Donkey Kong Country 3. However, the main plot in the game is actually a lot different this time around. Rather than just trying to able to kidnapping Donkey Kong or Diddy Kong again, so instead it's going to be entirely different from the console counterparts. To be more specifically, something related to the contest or something like that, which I know for the fact that it does kind of reminds me of some of a exactly the same story premise as the forms of how it does it on Luigi's Mansion and stuff. Although, to be fair though, that this game technically came out first when it comes to like the story involves around contests and stuff like that, or something like that, I have no idea. So basically what the plot is all about is the fact that announcement of a contest to find the fabled Lost World, which was said to have dominated legends for centuries, attract would be explorers all over the world to succeed the long-awaited chance of fame and fortune. Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, and Burrowing K. Rollenstein all hear of the contest, and the Kongs sets out leaving Dixie Kong with her cousin Kiddy Kong. Dixie wants to prove herself just as worthy as the other participants, or participations, or something like that, I have no idea. And basically, so she decides to participate in a contest and takes Kiddy Kong with her. Kiddy is not that aware about what is going on and decides to follow Dixie into the jungle. So yeah, that's the whole entire purpose of the story. It's all about she wants to be a proof of courage and stuff like that, I suppose. So yes, the premise of the plot is interesting and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess that begs the question for the sake of the forms of how different the story plays out. So anyways, here we go on to the next level, which appears to be totally re-crawl. I think that's what the actual level itself is called anyway. And basically this takes place in the actual mill. So yeah, most of those level themes might be familiar to you if you ever played, you know, Donkey Kong Country 3 before. So except the fact that this is on the Game Boy this time, and because of this though, since that, as you probably already noticed, that the actual setting for this particular color scheme if you couldn't tell, since we're going to be playing on the emulator. However, the actual setting I somehow managed to set this game up onto is the Super Game Boy mode. So because of that though, to make things a little bit more interesting to look at when it comes to like the actual color and stuff like that. Although originally we weren't going to do that for the sake of the forms of other Game Boy games in the past, such as Kirby's Dream Land, or Super Mario Land, or Super Mario Land 2, or heck, even especially noticeable with the forms of Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, or any other Game Boy games for that matter, but unfortunately though, we couldn't be bothered, so that's kind of unfortunate for my part, but hey, at least on the plus side is though, is the fact that, well, you know what I mean. So, anyway, so a few things we want to explain while this is going on. As I mentioned this before, that this game also came out on the 3DS eShop, as in Virtual Console lineup. And as I mentioned this before, that you can no longer get this game now on the 3DS, just because the 3DS and Wii U eShops are technically dead. So that means you can no longer try to add funds to your, you know, the actual two systems respectively, which is, you know, still kind of sad, especially noticeable because future generations has to move on, and because of that though, I really do miss the old days. So, anyway, so let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. What's your absolute favorite Donkey Kong Land game you've ever played in terms of the Game Boy trilogy of games? For me personally though, I think Donkey Kong Land 3 is by far the best one, just because, well, the level themes are pretty much exactly identical to the forms of how it does it in, well, for the sake of Donkey Kong Country 3. However, though, the entire levels themselves is entirely original and somewhat brand new. So, yeah, that might be something worth a while for able to actually notice something is completely different compared to the previous games for sure. But I digress. So yeah, every once in a while in certain worlds that you will come across into sheep shops, where basically if you talk to the bear, I'm guessing that might be the only bear that we have to come across into throughout the whole game, because unlike in Donkey Kong Country 3, there are multiple variations of the bears themselves for all that side quests and all that stuff. Whilst in here though, there's only one bear in the game, and that's what appears to be the sheepy or something like that. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, despite the fact that the game is going to keep on calling him just a bear and all that stuff, not that creative as a name, but regardless of such though, it knows what it is, I guess. So yeah, basically in this particular mini event right here, basically we need to get every single matching pairs, and then as you can tell, we need to worry about the time limit. However though, if you found matching, you know, if you found all the matching pairs, basically you get yourselves gem-packed with all these rewards, such as bananas, bear coins, along with the most important thing out of them all though, the DK Hero coin. So yeah, definitely need to look out for it, especially noticeable because, well, relatively speaking though, it's always important that you need to look, you know, just trying to able to search for it. And thus, because if you somehow manage to complete the matching pair game, you get yourselves the exclamation mark, along with the forms of the DK Hero coin on top of that. So, something to look out for. So, next level we have is Coco Channel, and this takes place in the river environment. So, a lot of swimming in this place, so because of this though, I almost first thought that that particular bottom portion of that segment down there, I almost first thought that was going to be spikes that we have to avoid, but nope, it's just completely harmless and stuff like that. So, yeah, it seems a little bit strange, but I guess it's something, I guess. Oh yeah, as far as I'm aware, that each and every single world does manage to retain 6 regular platforming levels and a boss fight in addition to that, so yeah, that might be something worth noting for when it comes to mentioning about the forms of how, well, you know what I mean, that this game is a lot different than the forms of how it does it than the Super Nintendo counterpart, because of the forms of how the fact that, well, I don't know about you, because again, it's been a while since I actually done some commentary, but, anywho, oh, and then also another thing as well is the fact that, I believe in the Japanese version of, Donkey Kong Land 3, as I mentioned this before, it doesn't seem to came out on the likes of the forms of the original Game Boy, but rather the Game Boy Color. So generally speaking, it calls the game in Japan Donkey Kong GB, Dinky Kong, and Dixie Kong. A bit of a weird name, but that's besides the point. But, yeah, it's kind of interesting how the fact that, like I mentioned this before, that's so weird able to actually have ourselves these separate releases between the original Game Boy version for the English versions and the Japanese version for the Game Boy Color release. So, it's a bit weird, honestly. Although, mind you, about the fact that that particular Game Boy Color version of Donkey Kong Land 3 in Japan came out exactly the same year as we've got Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Color, which appears to be like a remake of, well, not so much of a semi-remake, although, to be fair though, it has been a very long time since I actually last played Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Color, just because, good lord, that game is still tough, especially noticeable you have to deal with all that, well, slippery physics, and on top of all that stuff though, just screen crunch in general, and it's kind of impossible to beat the game, I must admit. But I will get back into it though at some point if I do get enough time for it. So, but anyway, and I somehow realized that I somehow died or something like that. Well, again, I didn't exactly pay attention to the actual game footage and stuff like that because I somehow got distracted by not only news content, but also about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, unfortunately though, as I said before, my computer just keeps on lagging, which, it's getting ridiculous now. Although I totally get it now because of the fact that since we had the Acer laptop for a very, very long time, after the events of 2013, despite the dark age of the Maxi Toys has been done and over with, back in the forms of in the beginning of 2010's era, just because, you know what I mean, bad quality, and as well as bad commentary as well. And not to mention though, is the fact that most of those commentary are heavily borrowed from other YouTubers, which just doesn't make that much sense. But still, unlike the forms of how it does it on the Maxi 10 counterparts though, that he just somehow borrows the exact same dialogue from any other YouTubers, which is pretty stupid if you ask me. Oh, and speaking of Maxi 10 though, it's been about almost 11 years ago since he never comes back onto YouTube ever again. I'm guessing he just somehow give up putting up YouTube content, because as far as I'm aware, that his last uploading schedule was actually one of those parts when he was trying to play through, you know, Mario Luigi Bowser's Inside Story for the DS, despite the fact that he doesn't able to actually have the best recording method. Although, I was going to try to do one by myself, but, yeah, I was expecting to try to do it on the DS emulator, but it's impossible to set up, because, obviously, as I mentioned this before, my computer keeps on lagging all the time, and it's just not pleasant for me. But I digress. So, oh, and another thing about this as well, about the fact the matter is though, is the fact that until next month, that you guys even heard about the game called Crash of the Titans? Well, basically though, that game is about to become 15 years old until next month in October. So, yeah, I can't believe that between those two games are about to be able to actually get ourselves a bit of a celebration going on. Like, as I mentioned this before, between both Crash of the Titans on specifically the console version, I would say on the PS2 version or something like that, well, despite the fact that I haven't exactly looked upon that much of Let's Plays in terms of, well, Crash of the Titans for any other multiple platforms, I guess. So anyways, the next level we have, as you can see on screen, we have Lift Shaft Lottery. So once again, we're going to explore the mill environment, so you pretty much expect at this point. And of course, much like the forms of how it does it on Donkey Kong Land 2, that, as I mentioned this before, that you do realize that you see the exclamation mark, as well as the DK Hero coin showing up on the actual icons if you somehow finish the level. And this actually represents for, obviously, DK Hero coins that you've actually found them, basically. And as far as exclamation marks, as far as this is concerned, basically you do found every single bonus areas, so nothing new, nothing special, but at least it's something, I guess, especially noticeable if you want to really achieve something. So, and as you probably already expected, that I'm going to be going for the 103% of this playthrough, so because of this though, yeah, I will try my best able to actually go through toughest obstacles and all that stuff, but hopefully I'm not going to get too much deaths, because as far as I'm aware, that we've already maxed out on hearts, basically, because the only way you can able to actually get extra lives super easily is by not only collecting a whole bunch of bananas, but also there are a few occasional one-ups you can get, and on top of all that stuff though, that's with all that cheap shop card game that you can play. So yeah, definitely the best way to able to rank up more extra lives if you ever think about it this way, so... Oh, and another thing about this as well, about the fact of the matter is though, that I honestly, there's not much else I can honestly try to explain about the forms of any other news, updates, or anything. It's just that, well, I've already explained how Donkey Kong Land 3 plays out, because as I said before, it's the Game Boy portable version of Donkey Kong Country 3. Well, except the fact that, well, I'm pretty sure that Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong does not appear in this game so far just yet. Although, mind you though, about the fact of the matter is though, as I said, the plot in the game is actually a lot different. Although, I'm pretty sure you might as well look up on the forms of the story and the plot if you somehow got the instruction manual. Well, I did somehow manage to have it, but unfortunately though it's been damaged, so that seems kind of unfortunate and ridiculous at the same time. So as a result, there's not much else I can honestly try to complain about, so... Anyway, so yeah, I guess that pretty much explains it. So, however though, there's another thing I would like to describe about this, is that just like in, I would say in Donkey Kong Land 2, that basically, I'm pretty sure whenever we continue our progressioning into the game, then I'm pretty sure you don't able to actually come across into some of those familiar bosses, although we will come across into some familiar boss fights in the likes of the Super Nintendo counterparts. However though, there's going to be shorter amounts this time around, just because this is on the Game Boy, so that means there might be some Game Boy's limitations, so... But we'll see what happens as soon as we're able to actually get towards the very end of the first world in this game so far. So, relatively speaking though, I think the amount of worlds you have to go up to at this point, there's actually a grand total of 6 worlds in the game, so yeah, a little bit shorter than the forms of how it does on the actual Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, but regardless of such though, it might be still a bit lengthy though, if only because of that one in particular thing coming up. Although it's only a bit longer than the forms of how it does it on Donkey Kong Land 1 though, just because Donkey Kong Land 1 only has roughly 4 worlds, so I can totally expect you to see how this is going, huh? And as far as I'm aware, for Donkey Kong Land 2, only contains also... Actually, can I think about it? Donkey Kong Land 2 does manage to able to contain, well, let me see here, yeah, I apologize for that sniffy nose. 7 worlds. So, yeah, relatively speaking though, I think Donkey Kong Land 2 is by far the longest game of the trilogy, so that might be something worth noting for, so... Oh, and also remember that particular flag, the gold flagpole, as we've already able to stumble across into several times? Well, basically, much like the forms of how it does it on Donkey Kong Country 3, basically though is the fact that if the flag sometimes doesn't seem to raise up properly, this means you're actually missing something. However though, if you manage to able to found every single bonus areas, including the DK Hero coin, and if you touch the actual flagpole at the very end of the level, basically the actual flag will able to rise up completely. This means you basically found everything, so... Yeah, that basically summarizes it such, because honestly, there's not much else I can say about it. Although, much like the forms of how it does it on, let's just say, Donkey Kong Land 1 and Donkey Kong Land 2, in order to switch between these two Kongs, basically you once again press the select button, so not much else to say about this. So yeah, that pretty much concludes that particular level, and now let's move on to the last level in World 1. And that will basically take place in the very first boss fight, where it's a lot more different this time, because rather than trying to take on the forms of that particular massive barrel thingy from the likes of the Super Nintendo counterparts, so instead the first boss in the game is Balbos. So yeah, a bit early to able to actually get this guy as the forms of the first boss in the game, so again, a bit weird. But anyways, the entire fight, much like the forms of how it does it on the console version, or the console equivalent, that basically we have to take control of Ungard the Swordfish throughout the whole entire fight, And the biggest differences this time around, though, is the amount of hits you need to hit them. So, and also you still need to rely on the forms of those urging stuff that you're gonna be able to knock back at him, I'm pretty sure. Well, it's hard to explain because I haven't exactly looked upon this game as much. And that's it. That's the first boss in the game. So, yeah, a bit quicker as far as I expect it will do. So, yeah, anyways, folks, basically, I think we're just gonna have to end things off at this point right here because we'll have to go for those videos in each and every single world. So yeah, that pretty much explains it. So yeah, join me next time for more of Let's Play of Donkey Kong Land 3. That's what basically we'll move on to the second world, known as Primate Plains. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Later, fellas.